Hello again, everybody. It's Rootbeer here with episode 4 of Magia Record. So, when we last left our heroes, Iroha and Yachio had just been reunited after going through a nightmare dream sequence, and we picked things up this episode with them going back to Mikazuki Villa. There's a short little comedy-ish segment where we see that Yachio has kind of let the place go in the absence of anybody else before we then move on to Kuro guiding our heroines to Hotel Faint Hope, the Magia's HQ. We then have a run-in with my favorite two jobbers, the Amane twins, who are still the cover image of this video because I haven't had time to draw a more relevant picture yet. Yachio gets separated from the group to have an off-screen fight with the twins, while Kuro and Iroha advance forward into the HQ proper. We then have a moment where Iroha and Kuro kind of sit down together and discuss things as they travel forward into the HQ. So in the last episode, I kind of complained that Kuro still kind of felt like a nothing character. You know, she was kind of a cardboard cutout that everyone just kind of explained the plot to during episode 3. So Kuro's backstory is kind of in line with what we already know about most Magius members. She came into the city. You know, she wasn't really prepared for everything that's happening, and so a combination of being a fairly weak magical girl and then finding out the truth of the situation kind of drove her into the Magius. And Iroha kind of responds with her whole thing, which is that, you know, if they all just team up and work together as a group rather than trying to rely on this weird cult, that they can find their way through the situation regardless. And so it looks to me like right now, Kuro's place in the story is someone from the other side that Iroha can kind of inspire and convince to kind of turn away from the Magius. From there, we run into Reina and Kaede again, so, you know, they had kind of joined up with the Magius at the end of Season 1, and we now see them here kind of running away from them. Kaede, end of Season 1, seemed to be really into what the Magius was preaching, while Reina was highly skeptical. And so, you know, now Reina is trying to drag her away from the situation. We then move into a fight scene with an Uasa that was set up to guard the place, where we can kind of see the idea of Iroha inspiring people away from the Magius taking shape in the form of this fight scene, where Kuro tries to use her doppel after they get cornered by the guard Uasa, and then Iroha kind of stops her from doing that, instead connecting with her and using a combination attack to defeat it instead. And it kind of ties into what Iroha was saying earlier, that, you know, by working together, becoming a team, and connecting with each other, that they can overcome the situation more than just relying on the weird, creepy cult that is the Magius. And that's kind of the same conclusion that Madoka and the gang came to in episode 1 as well. Unfortunately, I feel like the fight animation this week really wasn't to the same standard as episode 1 and 2. While it still has the same fast-paced and fluid animation, it was also just a lot messier. The fight was more frenetic. Lots of people were like sliding around while attacks were coming in off screen, and then all these bits were combining together into a bigger thing, so it just made the fight scene really illegible, you know? Like, the actual animation is impressive, but the overall composition of the fight was just hard to read, so I can't say I particularly enjoyed it this week. But anyways, after defeating the guard Uasa, Kaede kind of starts freaking out and losing control a bit, and suddenly her doppel just kind of bursts out unconsciously and starts kind of merging with her. So Iroha and Reina kind of work together to subdue the freaked out Kaede doppel, and then Mitama comes in with Momoko to kind of put Kaede away in isolation. And so we get to see a more in-depth revelation of just what exactly happens when you completely lose control of your doppel. You know, we kind of saw in episodes 2 and 3 things like Yachio almost killing Mifuyu, and then, you know, Iroha's doppel creating this little dream world for you, but then we now kind of see from the outside what happens when you completely lose control. So your doppel kind of merges with you to create this, like, creepy amalgam that's completely berserk. It's basically, like, on the same level as just becoming a witch, you know? And we see that Mitama has dozens, if not hundreds, of these out-of-control doppels locked up in isolation. So yeah, we kind of see much more concretely now that the Magius' plan is really not that good. It was already, like, kind of there when we see the ways that Iroha and Yachio lost control of their doppels, but just seeing the scale to which, like, all of these girls seem to have lost control of themselves, we can really see the downsides to the Magius plan now. And I would also just like to say, I kind of appreciate Mitama kind of being a little more malicious in this rendition of the story. So, spoilers for the game, but, by the end, Mitama, like many other people, kind of turned to join the main characters, and she kind of explains that her neutrality throughout the story and kind of helping the Magius by coordinating them was just her way of copping out of the argument, but it never really held that much weight because we never really saw her doing anything. Because her coordinating ability is really just kind of a nebulous power-up. It doesn't have any kind of concrete effect on the story. So seeing Mitama kind of act more like Kyubey, where she's pulling all of the double talk like, oh, well, I told you that there would be downsides, and, maybe they'll get better if the Magius plan succeeds. It just kind of makes her more complicit in everything that happens, and if she comes to the same conclusion that she did in the game, I think it'll just be more meaningful seeing her in a more malicious light right now. So yeah, overall, I think another very good episode of Magia Records. Season 2 has been a huge trend upwards from Season 1. I think transitioning to anime original has done wonders for the creativity of the story. I like the whole doppel merging syndrome. It's a way to kind of raise the stakes and add some darker elements to the story without explicitly killing any characters off. Though that being said, a lot of the characters that were shown off in the isolation were characters from the game, so if you were expecting to see any of them make it into the anime, there you go. We end off the episode with the actual Magius trio kind of declaring that this will be the final battle. And like I said in the previous video, I do have a vague idea of where they're probably going in the future, though I'm curious to see how they're going to transition from the dark reveal of the isolation ward to big dramatic fight scenes. But as long as they kind of keep up the momentum that they have right now, I think it'll all work out fine. So that'll be it for this video. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye-bye.